I never thought I'd be the woman who'd trade her soul for a stranger's touch. My name's Elise, and this is my story, raw and unfiltered, a confession carved from guilt and fire. If you're watching, you're already hooked, curious about the kind of sin that burns you alive and leaves you begging for more. This isn't a tale of redemption. It's about desire, the kind that sinks its claws into you and doesn't let go. Stay with me because this one's going to hit hard. It's a story of rain lust and the wreckage I left behind. It was a stormy night in Seattle, the kind where the rain doesn't fall. It lashes, soaking the city in a haze of gray and secrets. I was a paralegal married to Mark, a man whose love had faded into routine. Our life was a checklist: work, dinner, sleep, repeat. But that night in the law firm's dim office, everything changed. Julian walked in, a new client, all sharp suits and sharper eyes. He wasn't just handsome, he was dangerous, his presence a spark in the stale air of my life. I was working late, papers strewn across my desk, the rain drumming against the windows. Julian came to sign contracts, but his eyes weren't on the documents. They were on me, dark and piercing, stripping away every layer of my carefully built defenses. My blouse clung to my skin, damp from the rain. I'd run through the fabric, outlining curves I hadn't thought about in years. He noticed. Of course he did. His smile was slow, predatory, like he'd already won a game I didn't know we were playing. "Long night, Elise?" he asked, his voice smooth, low, like velvet over steel. I nodded, my throat tight, my fingers fumbling with a pen. The office was empty, the hum of the city drowned by the storm. He leaned closer, his tie brushing my desk, his scent leather and rain filling my lungs. I should have stepped back, kept it professional. But my body betrayed me, leaning toward him, my breath catching as his gaze lingered on my lips. The rain pounded harder, a rhythm that matched my pulse. His hand grazed mine, deliberate, his fingers warm against the cold metal of my wedding ring. I froze, heat flooding me, a mix of shame and want. "You're too beautiful to be stuck here alone," he said, and the words were a match to dry tinder. My heart raced, a traitor in my chest. I told myself to laugh it off, to send him away. But when his fingers traced the edge of my wrist, I didn't pull back. I couldn't. We talked, or pretended to. Contracts, cases, meaningless words to fill the silence. But the air was electric, charged with what we weren't saying. His eyes never left mine, dark and hungry, promising things I hadn't dared want in years. My blouse felt too tight, the damp fabric clinging to my skin, betraying every curve. His gaze dropped, and I felt it like a touch, searing and shameless. The rain roared outside, a curtain hiding us from the world. He stepped closer, his body inches from mine, the desk between us, no barrier at all. "Tell me to leave," he murmured, his voice a challenge, his breath warm against my ear. I opened my mouth, but no words came. My body screamed for him, every nerve alight, every inch of me aching. The rain streaked the windows, blurring the city lights into a kaleidoscope of sin. I was drowning, and I didn't want to be saved. When his lips found mine, it was a spark igniting a firestorm. His kiss was fierce, possessive, tasting of rain and forbidden promises. My hands gripped his tie, pulling him closer, the desk creaking as I leaned into him. The world fell away, no Mark, no vows, just Julian. His hands sliding up my thighs, pushing my skirt higher. The rain watched, relentless, as we crossed a line I'd never meant to touch. His hands were on me now, strong, urgent, sliding under my blouse, the damp fabric peeling away like a second skin. The office was a haze, the rain a roar outside, drowning out the voice in my head screaming to stop. Julian's lips moved to my neck, his teeth grazing my skin, each bite a pulse of pleasure and pain. My fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, my body arching against the desk. The papers scattered, contracts falling to the floor, irrelevant in the storm of our desire. His tie was gone, his shirt unbuttoned, revealing the hard planes of his chest. My hands roamed, greedy, memorizing every line, every muscle. The rain pounded the windows, its rhythm matching the frantic beat of my heart. His fingers found the zipper of my skirt, easing it down, the sound sharp in the quiet office. I gasped, my skin burning under his touch, the damp blouse clinging to my breasts, no barrier at all. I wanted to push him away, to cling to the woman I was, but she was gone, lost in the heat of his hands, the hunger in his eyes. The desk was cold against my thighs, a stark contrast to the fire between us. His lips were everywhere, my collarbone, my shoulder, the curve of my breast through the thin fabric. Each kiss was a claim, each touch a vow broken. My wedding ring caught the light, a cruel reminder, but I didn't care. Not then. I was alive, electric, consumed by a need I hadn't known I had. Julian's hand slid higher, his fingers teasing, testing, and I shuddered, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "Elise," he whispered my name, a prayer, a curse. His eyes locked on mine, dark and unyielding, stripping me bare. I leaned back, the desk hard against my hips, inviting him closer. His body pressed against mine, the weight of him overwhelming, perfect. The rain was a symphony now, a wild, untamed thing that matched the chaos inside me. I was drowning in him, in the scent of leather and rain, in the way his hands knew exactly where to touch. When it happened, it was a collision, a wave crashing over me, relentless and raw. My nails dug into his shoulders, my gasps mingling with his, the desk creaking under our weight. The pleasure was sharp-edged with guilt, with the knowledge that this was wrong, so wrong. But it was also everything, every ache, every want, every secret I'd buried. The rain roared outside, washing away the world, leaving only us tangled in a moment that felt like salvation and damnation all at once. Afterward, we didn't move, our breaths heavy, the air thick with the scent of rain and us. The office was a wreck, papers scattered, my blouse crumpled, his tie lost somewhere in the chaos. I sat up, pulling my skirt back, on my hands shaking. The rain hadn't stopped its relentless drum, a mirror to the guilt now clawing at my chest. Julian watched me, his eyes unreadable, his hand resting on my thigh, heavy with possession. I wanted to hate him, to blame him, but I'd wanted this just as much. The rain didn't let up, and neither did the weight of what I'd done. I stood by the window, my blouse half-buttoned, staring at the blurred city lights. Julian's reflection appeared behind me, his hands sliding around my waist, pulling me back into him. "Don't regret this," he murmured, his lips brushing my ear. But I already did. The guilt was a knife twisting deeper with every breath, but his touch was a drug, and I was still high. I turned my eyes, meeting his, searching for something, absolution maybe, or a reason to keep going. "This was a mistake," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't flinch, just smiled, that same predatory smile that had undone me. "You don't believe that," he said, and damn him, he was right. My body still hummed with his touch, my lips still tasted of him. I was married, but Mark felt like a ghost now, a shadow I'd betrayed in the worst way. The days that followed were a blur of lies and longing. At home, Mark was his usual self-kind, oblivious, planning our next vacation like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. Every smile I gave him was a lie, every touch a betrayal. I saw Julian again at the office, his eyes catching mine across the room, a silent promise of more. My heart raced, my skin flushed, and I hated how much I wanted it. One evening, Mark came home early, his eyes tired but warm. "You've been distant, Elise," he said, his hand reaching for mine. I froze my stomach, twisting the scent of Julian's cologne still lingering in my mind. "Just work." I lied, my voice too sharp. He frowned, his thumb brushing my ring, and for a moment I thought he knew. "I love you," he said, and the words were a weight I couldn't bear. I kissed him hard, trying to drown the guilt, but all I saw was Julian's face. The office became our battleground. Late nights, locked doors, the rain always there, a witness to our sin. Julian's touch was bolder now, his hands finding me in empty conference rooms, his lips stealing kisses in the stairwell. Each time I swore it was the last, but my body betrayed me, arching into him, craving the fire only he could give. The guilt was a constant now, a shadow I couldn't shake, but it only sharpened my desire, made every touch more desperate, more dangerous. One night he pushed too far. "Leave him," he said, his voice rough, his hands gripping my hips in a dark office corner. The rain was softer now, a whisper against the windows, but his words were a storm. Leave Mark, burn my life to the ground for a man whose last name I barely knew. The idea was insane, but for a moment I saw it, a life with Julian, no lies, no guilt. Then Mark's face flashed in my mind, his trust, his love, and I pulled away, shaking. I told Julian we were done. He stood there, rain streaking the window behind him, his eyes dark with something like pain. "You'll come back," he said, his voice low, certain. He left a note on my desk the next day, just his initials and a time: midnight. Rooftop. I didn't go, but I kept the note, tucked it into my purse, a secret I couldn't let go. The rain kept falling, and so did I, deeper into the mess I'd made. Mark started to notice. He'd ask about late nights, his voice tight, his eyes searching mine. "You're different, Elise," he said one night, his hand on my arm, his touch so different from Julian's. I wanted to confess, to spill every ugly truth, but the words choked me. Instead, I kissed him, my lips a lie, my heart still racing with Julian's touch. The office was a minefield now. Julian's glances burned, his presence a constant pull. I avoided him, but every creak of the door, every shadow in the hall made my pulse spike. One night I stayed late alone, the rain a soft hum outside. The door opened, and there he was, his suit damp, his eyes hungry. "You can't run from this," he said, stepping closer, his hand brushing my cheek. I wanted to push him away, to scream, but my body leaned into him, my lips parting. His kiss was a fire, consuming, relentless. My hands found his chest, pushing, then pulling, torn between want and shame. The desk was there again, papers scattering the rain, a chorus to our sin. His hands were bolder now, sliding under my skirt, his touch a brand I'd never erase. I gasped, my nails digging into his arms, the pleasure sharp-edged with pain. We were a storm, wild and unstoppable, and I hated how much I needed it. It ended with a phone call. Mark, his voice shaking, asking why I wasn't home. I stood in the office, Julian's scent still on me. My blouse crumpled and lied again. "Work," I said, my voice hollow. Julian watched, his eyes unreadable, and I knew this couldn't go on. I told him to stop, to leave me alone. He didn't argue, just left, the door closing with a finality that broke something in me. But it wasn't over. A week later, I found his note again, tucked in my purse, his initials a scar. The rain still fell, and I still burned. This is my story, a warning to anyone who thinks they can dance with temptation and walk away unscathed. If you've watched this far, you've felt it too, that pull, that ache for what you shouldn't have. So hit subscribe, drop a comment, call me a fool, a sinner, or just human. Like the video or don't, but share it with someone who's tasted temptation. And check out my other stories, they're just as raw, just as real. Ever been burned by a forbidden kiss? Spill your secrets below, I'm listening.